like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity. This is the backstage, backstage pass for Peter and I. There's, it's like round and round our minds go. Where it stops, nobody knows. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's almost like we're two little boys that are going through life and saying, "What'd you learn? Like, what do you have? Like, what's on your mind? What have you picked up?" And it's like that energy somehow, feeds, and we can not talk for a year or 2 years or 3 years. We can not talk for a while. We just pick up just right where we left off again. Um, so the backstage pass is different from the regular podcast. And so I do want to share with Peter the life GPS. I think he would be very interested in some of the new things that are going on there. So what's going on in your life, Peter?
Well, I don't know. One man's trash is another one's treasure, I guess. But I've still got the automotive stuff going. I got the disabled school in Africa, which I'm head back to in a.
Where is that in Africa?
It's in Zambia.
Okay.
120 kids.
How many kids?
120.
Okay.
From 4 to 17.
And what's the biggest challenge that group is facing there?
The biggest challenge ultimately is when they leave, being able to be productive.
Yep.
And so, I mean, if you saw it, you'd go, geez, you need to raise a few $100,000 and invest in facilities, right? But that I don't believe is critical. There are some things that are needed for that, because you got kids that are, whether it's deaf, dumb, blind, physically disabled, mentally disabled. It's the whole smorgasbord all jammed into one school, right? And the education system is basically the standard education system that teachers are provided by the government. Yes, to kind of teach disabled kids, but it's more just a more accommodating curriculum of what everybody else learns. But anyway, without getting into that, there's a whole bunch of things, and I'm trying to partner with Tim Tebow Foundation to not for money, but for just resources and process to be able to improve the quality of life and readiness for that when they leave, because otherwise they're back to where they started from.
Right.
So, but then there's that, and then some blockchain company that's
Going back to the Africa thing. So if
that?
anybody could help them out in any area, what would they love help with?
Well, in the first instance, what I want to get to quickly is just getting evaluations of sight and hearing, because simple things like hearing aids for the partially deaf will make all the difference in the world for learning, because that's the only issue maybe for some of them. It's a small portion of them. Sight, same thing, to get eyes tested so that they can actually see what they're doing. It would, for those that haven't got a fundamental sight issue. So that's the thing, and that's trickier, right? Because you've got to get those resources are available there at much lower cost than having medical evaluations done, but it's also hard to access from availability versus working through a charitable foundation that does that anyway, because that goes on. That's hence why I'm trying to tap in. So really it's to get the conditions of the kids into an optimal learning ability, because even the ones that need prosthetic limbs have I think mostly got them. And again, we're not talking about bleeding edge stuff. If you've got no legs, then they're very basic prosthetic limbs and they learn to walk with them, but that's good enough, as opposed to something that's robotic and costs $100,000 million a limb kind of thing.
Right.
So it's that stuff first. I mean, if you said if I had put my unlimited head on, then I'd go, well, I'd raise $1 million and I'd fix it all in 3 months by throwing money at it, kind of thing, or buying everything that's needed. And that would be a faster way if it was easy to um, uh, it wouldn't be hard necessarily to raise that, but is it the right way to do versus kind of a
Right.
more organic way, because it's a third world country? The last thing you need to do is prop them up with high tech solutions, even for the work they do afterwards. So it, it, I'm trying to get it right. So, it'd be easy to go put satellite connections in there so they can use the internet more for learning tools and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just being cautious because I don't want to go do stuff like that that may look like a big whiz bang fizz and find that the teachers can't use it. They don't know where the tools are. I don't know what the tools are. So I don't want to run. It's one of those things that you can see a lot of things that if it was uh, here in America kind of thing, or Europe, that to get them up to their standard of dealing with disabled kids, you could throw the kitchen sink at it, right?
Right.
But it needs to be sustainable
Right.
uh, in a local way, not in a always requires America or Europe to be having people raising money to put in there. So I think that's entirely possible, but it's kind of I'm a one-man band when it comes to helping turn this. It's not failing. It's just these kids are being released, so to speak. They have to that, and and they're not leaving with enough practical skills and knowledge to make a basic living so they can actually get food, because that is, if you don't get food, you starve.
Right.
Obviously,
Well,
and
and
if you
it's
don't have
some of the
shelter,
same challenges that we're having here in America in the foster system, where kids age out, and so you
yeah,
get
that's what this is. They
yeah,
age at
yeah,
17,
yeah, they
and
age
then if
out.
they go back to their family that live in mud huts, basically, or breeze block huts, they can't afford to carry
Right.
them, so
Right.
they're dead. Basically, they're dead
Right.
people walking.
Right.
So
Wow.
it's anyway. That's that's
Yeah.
that's one thing of a lot of other things that I somehow like to pile on my. That's a one that fills the heart. Some of the other stuff is just economic stuff that you go, yeah, I don't really feel like doing this, but I said I would, so I will, and I still need to. I'd rather make my own money to invest in disabled schools than have to go get it from other people. So
Right.
I, so in
That's
that
what I'm
sense,
saying.
yeah.
That's what
So
I'm
I,
saying.
so I'd rather have my economic investments and where I participate, creating um, wealth, if you will, to then give back without having to go, you know, ask other people to. So it's another one of those things that we were talking about during the first podcast. None of these things. Life isn't easy, right? It's not easy in some ways. When I first got into the workforce, I mean, I was working since I was 10, but I left home at 18, and I was just working minimum wage for 4 years. It ain't easy, and I'm not the guy that can, as President Rolls-Royce can say, uh, you know, I went to the right school. I went to the right university. I didn't. I went to agricultural college. So, but back then in the beginning, I was no different to anybody else other
Right.
than where I grew up, right?
Right. Right.
Very limited mindset. I mean, I thought I could, be a farm worker, maybe be a plumber, or, some of these tool skills with your hands. That's what most people told me. Yeah, you got to get a job using your hands, Peter. You're good with your hands. And of course, you go, okay. And then other people would tell you that, when I was in my early 20s, you know, don't go into business. You're a country boy. And, you go, oh, yeah, that's too difficult for me. Wall Street, I had friends that ended up on Wall Street by the time I was 25, 26. And I thought, yeah, there's no way for me into that. And so, we all start in the beginning not believing what's possible, right? But in my 20s, I decided that was bullshit. In fact, the more people that told me I couldn't do something, even if I was thinking of doing something that I thought there's no way I can do that, but I'm going to give it a shot. And when somebody would tell me, sometimes it was my parents, oh, Peter, why are you changing jobs again? You're doing so well in that one, milking cows and doing this. And I go, no, it's not for me, mum. And so they would make me feel like, oh, you're making bad choices. They were the adults, right? And eventually you don't say bullshit, you don't get angry about it. You just go, you double down on determination. You double
Right.
down on survival. You double down on the idea of getting beyond survival and daring to imagine buying a new bicycle. The first new thing I bought in my 20s was a bloody bicycle, you know, right? I never thought I'd have 10 cars or six, whatever, and all this stuff. And none of that is it. The stuff is not important to me anyway. It never was. The feeling good is all that ever mattered to me. Like, even when I'm feeling bad, it's easy to feel bad once you go down that slippery slope, right? But in psychological terms, I'll tell you, your thoughts control your feelings, and your feelings control your actions, right? That's the classic path, and that is largely true, kind of thing. Here we go with the word truth, right? But the truth is that works beautifully if you are through your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, that your thoughts are seeking the truth. Then that works. But otherwise, if it doesn't work, I say no. You gotta wake up and create the feeling of unlimited, the feeling of love or of happiness. I'm the guy that walks in any room when the house is on fire and starts smiling, like, okay, let's get on with it, right? But how do you get that feeling so that you can think through that feeling?
See,
Because it's that,
this is
right?
another podcast we need to do because my brother, my youngest brother, and my son said to me last year that my feelings were important.
What's that?
They said my feelings. My brother said, "Mark, your feelings are important." My son said, "Dad, your feelings are important."
Yeah, look, and so here we go again. And this is exactly what I say when my kids or somebody says that to me. Yeah, feelings are everything and feelings are nothing. So you pick when they're going to be, feelings are important and when they're not, because they're important and they're not.
Right?
They're only important when they're the right feelings,
See,
right?
this is where
And
it's
what I
like,
mean by right, hang on, sorry to interrupt you, because I don't like the word right and wrong either. But and if I say love, that really sends people think I'm cuckoo, right? But what is love? Love is joy. Love is playful curiosity. Love is gratitude for everything, even if it hurts you sometimes, because in the pain is a lesson. So that's what light is. Love is light is. If you, what do we say when we're in trouble in business? Let's shed some light on the topic. Hello, let's shed some light on the topic. Let's when you get up in the morning, you pull the curtains back, let the light in,
so
right?
what we have is we have 5 more minutes on this one here, and then we gotta cut here. But we want to have Peter back again. So have you ever read A God-Shaped Brain?
No. Who wrote it?
Timothy Jennings. And this thing, like this thing really stretched me a lot. I mean, the notes I have, but he's talking about love, and he talks about love and flow,
Yes.
and he says, what breaks love is a lie. He says anytime love or flow is broken, it's because of a lie. Somebody's telling a lie, somebody's believing a lie. There's some lie that breaks flow, which is what you said, and you didn't even read the book. A book I'm reading right now is Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me. I mean, this thing, this thing is,
That's dumb.
I mean, this is this is such an enlightening book. It's like, you got to be kidding.
Well,
So,
look, when I say that's dumb, but by the same token, I'd say there's a lot of lessons to learn from seeing what's wrong in the world.
well,
So
right.
if somebody writes a book like that, and I haven't read it, so I shouldn't be commenting, but I would say when I say it's dumb, somebody's locked onto an idea that makes no sense.
Well,
The
what their
first question is,
premise is, they go through and they have so much data on brain science and so much data on people, and how people, they can't accept that they made a mistake. All the evidence, like all the evidence shows you made a mistake. Everything. They have time and time. It's unbelievable. But I do want to show you just real quick on the Life GPS and what we've done, what's being done with it through Life Masteries Institute. So now there's channels and groups, there's questions, there's profiles. In the assessment, there's the personality report, which was still there, but now it's got the passion circle. So somebody in, a few minutes can write out type out, like, choose all their different passions, and then they can come up with their life vision, or it plugs directly into AI, and AI will take all their passions and give them a life vision statement. There's a balance wheel, there's a marriage or relational wheel, there's a career wheel, there's time tracking now, where, like, it's weird because if you ask 100 people what their biggest challenge is, 33 of them on average will say it's directly connected into time. Directly. It's time. It's something specifically in time. Like 99.8% of them, if you ask them, if you had more time, would that help with you solve your biggest challenge? And 99 point, I don't know, 8 or 7% will say yes, if I had more time. But people don't know how to think about time.
right. So Mark, I would say the biggest problem isn't time. It's simple as this. It's the way people think and the way they feel.
It's absolutely right. And so we need to talk about feeling. Maybe I'll get my son and my brother on, because what I found, I did a little experiment. I created the quantum feeling model.
Yeah.
And what I found is I'm finding, and then Nancy Virch, Nancy Allen and Nancy and my youngest brother said, Mark, you need validation. And I'm like, I didn't realize I need validation. Like, I didn't think I did. And I'm like, why do you say that? And they say, because everybody needs validation. I'm like, huh. So I asked Tom, I said, Tom, do you think I need validation? He said, I don't think you do. I'm like, okay. So maybe I do need him.
Well, that's a topic in itself, because to the extent that validation feels good, right? But not validation from for me, validation from somebody that's in a flow, that's flying at the next level up for me. When I described what I was like when I was 20, that I was in a flow, but not the flow I am now, right? So, if you want to if you want to be better at something, anything, or you want to feel better, if you want to feel better, do better. I mean, look towards people that are already able to do that, people that are able to overcome. It's easy to say, look at Mother Teresa, but that's an extreme level that is hard for most people to follow. That's why she was so rare, right? But down to mentors, my mentors, I'm happy to receive validation from a mentor, because it tells me I'm on the right track. If they're flowing in at a higher level than me, and I'm happy to validate people that are trying to get to where I am, right? Encourage them, in other words, validate, encourage. But if somebody wants to come into my flow, like an 18-year-old kid like I was, or 22-year-old kid like I was, and they want me to live in their world for a second by telling me all their problems and their ability. It's not that I'm not empathetic or compassionate towards that, but I'm not going to allow myself to submerge in their flow at the cost of getting out of mine, right? Because if I over empathize and I'm over compassionate, and if I validate them for the wrong reasons, then I'm not helping them. I mean, if I'm validating them when they're trying to stretch beyond their limitations, then I'm going to validate them. But why on if I put myself in their shoes and they need to be validated because they're a junior learning to crawl, walk. Well, if I validate just generally that, then it so that they feel good about where they are as opposed to good about where they're capable of going to. I don't want to validate the wrong things, right? If
Right.
I'm
So
being smart about it, but if I'm the guy that doesn't know all that, you might say you need validation because you don't know enough to know that you don't need it. You just need to look towards
so what
the sun,
so this is obviously
the
a topic
stars.
that Peter's thought about. Most people haven't thought a lot about validation. I've thought a lot about validation, a lot about feelings. I think validation and feelings can be addictive like heroin or alcohol,
Sure.
where people, the more feelings they get, the more they want, the more validation they get, the more
Well,
they want.
all that
So
is a different form of dependency.
right. And so, anyways, so Elaine, when we schedule the next one for Peter, I don't know, ask him to schedule like a whole day, and we'll just do one after another. like,
I was
like
gonna
I
say,
wish
what
I
about a
could.
week?
right, a week, right? Like we could go on, and it's just one after another after another. It's like intoxicating. It's like because it stretches your mind to say, well, wait a minute, like what is that? Like what is that? So if you've enjoyed this, okay, if you've enjoyed this podcast and the previous we did with Peter, we might have just a category just for Peter Miles. I don't know. But if you've enjoyed it, like share this with somebody else. And if you think, well, I can't share it with that person, and I can't share it with that person, I can't share it with that person, ask yourself why. And I'll tell you why. Because you don't think they're smart enough. You think, well, they're not as smart as I am. They wouldn't understand what Peter's saying. Don't worry. You don't understand. I don't even understand what he's saying. Shoot, he probably doesn't even understand what he's saying. Like it's
No,
just
I do.
yes and no, right?
Sorry. What's that? I
So
do.
if you
It
have
doesn't
any
make me
questions,
perfect. It just means I know where I'm going.
right? So if you have any questions on this, connect with the individual who invited you to participate for sure. Or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever can on our own. Have an amazing day. Thanks, Peter.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.